All right, welcome everybody. We are here for another Sunday evening Chaski chat. This weekend we are joined by newest member of the Chaski team, Ms. Amelia Boone. So excited to welcome her to the Chaski team, Chaski family, and she's gonna hop in here, talk to us a little bit about what she's been up to, what she's doing with Chaski, and really what 2021 is going to look like. So hopefully we'll be talking all things, a little bit from her background, probably talking a little bit about Big's Backyard, her most recent competition, and even looking into a little bit farther back into her obstacle racing career, kind of seeing where she is going, where she's headed. But Amelia is someone who I consider a close friend at this point. Super amazing human being and just an absolutely badass athlete. So she really came to prominence through the Spartan and OCR world, and now has shown herself to be really, really diverse runner in terms of her ability to compete both as an ultra runner and so we'll get into all that in a second. I'm just letting her in here, and then we'll get started. And there she is. Hey, Amelia.
That I don't know why I always wave when I do like Zoom or lives. I'm like, why am I waving? It's not like I ever
Hi.
walk into a conference room and wave at people, but apparently
Well,
that's a thing now.
I guess it's a thing now. It's 2020. Things that weren't things are now things. That's how it goes sometimes.
Um,
Yeah. How are you? How's your Sunday weekend going?
not too bad, Pretty. It's a beautiful weekend here in Colorado, so it's like 60 degrees and lovely. There's still snow on the ground, but everybody tells me this is
Wow.
normal, so just enjoy it while it lasts. So able to get out and get some good runs in and things like that.
Yeah. So because you just moved to Colorado this year, right?
I did, yeah, earlier in the spring. So it's been about coming up on 8 or 9 months at this point. So everybody says that I should be adjusted to altitude at this point, but I'm telling myself I'm going to give it at least a year. That's my excuse for every run that feels bad now. I'm like, oh, I'm still adjusting. People have been like, you've been here since April. And I'm like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's okay. We'll give you a year. I think it's totally fair. It's been a stressful year. That probably makes it take even longer. You know.
Exactly. It was actually a perfect year to move because I'm like, at least I don't have a lot of races to get ready for
Yeah,
like
no, it's
that.
true. And I think with altitude and like transitioning, that's the most important thing. It's just not to rush. Just take your time and kind of let your body do its thing, and then, you'll do all right. So,
Right.
yeah. But I'm curious. So, are you considering yourself like a Coloradan now? Like, do you see yourself sticking around, or are we
I
going to see you
do.
moving back?
No, I do. I don't. I have no plans. I mean, once travel is kind of up and running again, I'll be going back to the Bay Area once a month to
Okay.
for work and whatnot. That was the original plan. But no, I bought a house here, and Colorado is stuck with me. So I'm sorry, everyone that lives here. Ruined your state for you.
No, I'm sure they're very glad to have you. No, and honestly, so like I guess part of this is like we at Chaski are super glad to have you as well. Really psyched to welcome you to the team. And I really just wanted to take this opportunity to kind of just like dive into your story a little bit. I know you don't have like it's not like you just raced or you have something coming up, so I feel like this is a good time to just kind of speak a little bit generally about your background in the sport and also kind of like where you see yourself going, because you have such an interesting background, and it's a little bit different from some of us who are kind of just like came in straight through the running thing into ultra running. So I guess I would love to start with like, I honestly don't even know, but like just how did you get into obstacle racing? Like how did you get into the OCR
Yeah.
world?
Yeah, I mean, probably like how anybody else ever got into it is that a friend or a coworker was like, "Oh, look at this, let's do it." And so I had that. I was an attorney at a law firm. I was a first year attorney, and it was just some of us that decided to go out and run a Tough Mudder back in 2011. So like right when they were
Wow.
starting up. But I didn't have a background in running. I didn't have a background I didn't run in college or anything like that. I remember I went out and I ran one half marathon. To this day is the only road race that I've ever run. First and last road race. I ran a half marathon in Wisconsin, just to see if I could run 13 miles straight. Um,
Wow.
before the Tough
Was
Mudder.
that really a concern? Were you like not sure about it?
I wasn't sure. No, I didn't know. I had never run that
Wow.
far before in my life. So I was like, okay, let's run a half marathon, and then see if I can do it. And then I realized I didn't like to run fast. I've never liked to run fast, but I was really good at like running for long periods of time. And so I started getting more and more into like the 24-hour obstacle races, and just really dove into that entire world back, in 2012, 2013, 2014 for several years.
But
Um,
so hang on. I feel like you're probably skipping a step or two because you went from saying like me and my coworkers were thinking about doing this Tough Mudder, which is like normal conversation, and like I wasn't sure if I could run 13 miles to and then I really found my strength in the 24-hour stuff. So like how did you get from point A to point B there? Like was it
Honestly, it's the stupidest connection ever, because I ran one Tough Mudder, and then they announced this thing called the World's Toughest Mudder, which, so this
uh
was, I ran a Tough Mudder in July of 2011, and then they announced that there was going to be a 24-hour event in December of that year. And for some unknown reason, after running one race, I decided I can do that. And
whoa.
so there was no, it's not like you build up. I didn't do anything that you normally should do. It was just like, that sounds good. Let's do that. And then I also
Whoa.
realized, and then I was also terrified because I was like, what am I doing? I'm running a 24-hour race in New Jersey in December, and like had nothing to think that I could actually run for 24 hours. And I think that all of us have made kind of weird leaps like that. And sometimes it blows up in our face, and sometimes it goes really well. And I
hmm
think I just lucked out that had it blown up in my face, I probably would have never, I probably just would have been like, okay, I'm done. That's it. But I think
Yeah.
I was kind of lucked out. Beginner's luck.
Yeah. Wow, yeah. Well, I think it's a little bit more than luck, but we'll give it to you this time. Wow. Okay. So then, you're doing all this OCR stuff in like the first half of the 2010s and stuff, and you're kind of like already in the like realm of ultra running, I would say, and doing events that are like 24 hours. So what was that kind of a natural transition from being like I'm doing these super long OCR competitions to I want to do something that's just running? What was that like?
So I had decided, since I had run 24-hour races multiple times. And then I had also done like longer, more adventure racing type events. I signed up for my first pure ultra in 2015. It was the Georgia Death Race. And I just assumed, since I had run for 24 hours before doing obstacle races, that running 100K would be no problem whatsoever. I got this. I totally got this. It's just running. There's no obstacles. There's no wetsuits involved. There's nothing. What I didn't account for is how hard it is to just run when there's nothing to break it up. And so it was like, I didn't know how to fuel. I was used to moving much
Mm,
slower, so at World's
hmm
Toughest Mudder, you could eat a lot of solid food because you're like stopping to crawl through things and swim
Right.
and whatnot. My stomach exploded on me because I just had zero idea how to fuel. After 10 or 15 miles, I was like, what do I do with my arms and my hands? It was a very humbling experience. I was like on the side of the trail puking. Um, and I went into it just like, I think, a little bit cocky that it would be easier. And I just got my ass handed to me.
We've all been there. It's
Yeah.
okay.
But at the same
So
time, I was like, oh, I love this. This is different. And this is something new that I'm not very good at and I want to get better at. And that's always kind of what's appealed to me about racing.
yeah. So I'm curious, as someone who's never really competed, well, never competed in any kind of OCR thing, when you do say a 24-hour OCR race, like how do you have a sense of like how much running you're actually doing? Like how many miles or hours or however you judge that?
Yeah, because I mean it's a 5-mile loop, And so
Okay.
you have your mileage in a
Right.
loop, and then it's just you add 20 25 obstacles per lap on that.
Yeah.
So
So like how many like in the, when you're whatever winning one of these 24-hour races, how many laps are you doing?
yeah, I mean it depends on the like terrain and stuff. The furthest I ever ran was 90 miles.
Okay.
And then I've done like around like 75 or something, on a much like hillier course where you have to like jump off cliffs and things like that take a lot of time. So I
Takes
mean,
a lot
but
of
like,
time.
no, no, the top, I to this day I still want to hit 100 miles in a 24-hour obstacle race. Like I like it's like just grating at me because no woman has ever hit 100 miles. There's been plenty
Mm.
of men that have hit 100 miles. I think the furthest a guy has gone is 105, maybe 110.
Wow.
But it's still kind of this itch that I want to scratch at some point.
Yeah. No. That's yeah, that would be pretty amazing. 100 miles of 24 hours is no joke, especially with a bunch of obstacles thrown
Yeah,
in.
I mean, yeah, it's like 100 miles in 24 hours for running an ultra is, depending on the terrain, it's not bad. But then you throw it in,
Right.
25 obstacles a lap. So Will Hicks is telling
Yeah.
me 110. Thank you,
There
Will
you go.
Hicks. Ryan
That's
Atkins.
why we got the commenters. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so then I guess more recently in the last couple of years we've seen you at the backyard,
Hmm.
Big's backyard. So I guess what tell us like what was the appeal of that?
Yeah.
Was that kind of again a natural progression from like well maybe like take us back to that first 100K that kind of kicked your ass a little bit and then like was that a impetus to I want to try this more and dive more into the running side of things? Did that kind of spur you into that side of sport a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in 2015 I was kind of looking for like the next thing to do. And so I ran that 100K, and then I decided, okay, let's keep doing some of these races that are just running. I ran in 2016. I ran Sean O'Brien. I got a golden ticket to go to Western States. Broke my femur. Couldn't
Nice.
go to Western States.
Ooh.
Um, so that then became my kind of like long, torturous relationship with like figuring out how to train for ultras, and stay healthy and, the next few years of injury. But, the backyard to me really kind of grew out of the appeal. I ran Barkley in 2018.
Hmm.
Um, and then it was actually Maggie Utero who was like, uh, who encouraged me to like try the backyard. Still don't think it's like my super like a huge strength of mine. It's a fascinating kind of race, and I love the mental aspect of it. But it's definitely something that I think kind of appealed to me because I've done looped stuff before.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I'm just, I don't know. I don't know if I have anymore the entire you need to go into the backyard. You need to win. Like you need to have this mindset that like you will crawl across the finish line even if your like leg is falling off. um I don't know if I have that in me anymore, to be totally honest, because I've been there so many times.
Yeah,
But it
it's
is
funny.
such a
I've
cool
I've been running
experience.
with Jim Walmsley, who's a really good one of the best ultra runners in the world, and he describes
Jim, never
it
heard of him.
that yeah, well, maybe some of your audience has. um, he describes that ultra runners have idiot strength, that they
Hmm.
just have this like bullheaded like I'm just gonna like you said I'm gonna break my leg and just drag myself across the finish line no matter what. And I think that's kind of what like sometimes separates people into like I get drawn into the ultra world or like it's not for me is
Right.
like do you have that just like crazy motivation to to like kill yourself for no reason basically other than because you really really want to do it.
Yeah. Interruption. I thought my dog was going to pee on the carpet. Um,
Oh, it's all good.
Not carpet because they don't have carpet, but floor. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, no, there's just something, a different switch, and I think that can get us into a lot of trouble. It's gotten me into a lot of trouble, but it is kind of that balancing of like, how do you figure that out? Like, how do you know, like, what are you out there for? Why are you doing it? And then like, where do you draw the line of that enough is enough, you know? And that's all a line that we cross sometimes and then have to pull back and figure it out from there.
Yeah. So I guess that brings us kind of nicely to this year's bigs, which I think was your last competition, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess take us through that race a little bit. I know this was the second time you'd done bigs, is that right?
Yeah.
Um, and last year, I know there's a video on YouTube that you guys can watch. It's really awesome. And this year, I don't know if there's anything similar, but I know
I
you
think
made it
there's something coming
farther.
out, but not yet. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I know you definitely made it farther. But tell us a little bit about kind of like what that race was like. Like, what were you hoping to do going into the race? Did you want to be really competitive for the win, or were you just like, I want to go farther than I did last year. I want to hit this mileage.
Yeah, it's a tough race. I learned last year from Maggie that to do well at these kinds of races, like you need to go in with that I am in this until the end and like nothing is going to stop me.
Yep.
So I tried to adopt that more of that mindset this year. Um, and I definitely wanted to clearly get further than last year, and then just see how far I could go. And things were going really well until like when the wheels fell off, the wheels just, I mean, it was just sudden fall off. And I just couldn't triage it back
Mm.
into, so like by like mile 125, I was still feeling really great. And then over the next like 2 to 3 hours, I just tanked. And it was all stomach related. Um, and just couldn't. I got super dizzy. Just ended up laying down on the side of the trail.
Oof.
I think that's when I knew that I was done.
Yeah.
I was like, not gonna finish a loop. Like Howard Stern was out there like doing photography,
Jeez.
and he was like, "Are you alive?" And I'm like, "I will be." Um, but yeah, it's one of those races where it's the only race that you can go into and be like, I only ran 137 miles and feel like bad about yourself for it because people are running like twice that. So it is just such a weird thing. You can't have any ego going into a race like that. And at this point, I just, I spent many years in therapy getting over the ego part. So now for me, it's
Uh-huh.
about the adventure, which is super
Yeah.
cool.
So I'm really curious with a race like that, are you guys kind of hanging out and like talking the whole time? Like, are you, when, I've seen the video where like usually people, I mean, whatever, you always start together, but then are you like actively trying to walk and jog and run together on the loops? Like, is there some sense of kind of camaraderie between the competitors, especially as it gets later?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this year, especially because there are only 15 of us because of COVID, last year when there were like 75 people, it was very much just kind of a waiting game to like narrow down. But from the beginning this year, it's a very small group of us. And
Yeah.
you know that you have to rely on each other. The more people that are out there, the longer that you're going to make it as an entire group.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it was a lot of encouragement. And, Courtney was actually the best at this is she would see somebody hitting a rough patch and like just go over to them and like try and like lift their spirits, help them get through it, just because, she knew that the longer everybody else stays out there, the longer she could go.
Right.
And so I think we all tried to like embody that. At the same time, I also learned that you kind of have to run your own stride. So for instance, like I have a very different gait than Maggie, and that if we run together, it just doesn't match up as well. So sometimes, like, and that's nothing against either of us. It just
Yeah.
doesn't. We just have different paces that are more natural, and so I think you can get yourself into a tricky spot if you try and match somebody else just so you can hang out and talk. Um,
Yeah.
so during the night, most people you weren't allowed to have headphones during the day, but during the night, most people put in headphones and just kind of like did their thing on a road.
Yeah.
I'm not, yeah.
Wow. And then, so like you said, you made it 137 miles, which is like unbelievable. But then there are other competitors that are still going for like a full 24 plus hours after that. So what's that like as a competitor still being there? Because you must be like totally wrecked because you've been awake and running for like 30 hours or
Yeah.
whatever. But I'm sure you kind of want to like still be part of the action and like be there. So like what was that next day and a half like?
Exhausting. I mean, because I had it was the same thing last year too. Is that it's the worst recovery from a race ever because you
Yeah.
pretty much finish your race and then you stay up for the next 30 hours. You stay up for another
Oh my
35
God.
hours cheering everybody else on. And I think I took pictures if anybody had the unfortunate incidents of like looking at my stories during it, my cankles, like that were
Oh, I
just
remember seeing that.
so big. So it was just it is the worst kind of recovery ever, but it's a great year to do it because like and I was an absolute shit show for the next, at least several weeks because just you don't
Yeah.
do any of the things you should do after a race. You're still like
Right.
eating the M&Ms and things like that you use to fuel because you can't really go anywhere because you're in last backyard. So
Yep. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, I guess that leads nicely into like, tell us a little bit about what that's been like. I know you've had some like kind of health struggles in the last month, it sounds like. And
yeah.
again, you've been very like super transparent about that stuff, which I think is really awesome. But, a lot of the time we hear like the post race interview and then we don't hear from an athlete for a couple months. But tell us like what that last it's been at least a month now, right? Like what has
Yeah,
that
it's
been
been
like for
about
you?
6 weeks. Like last year, I recovered from Bigs within a week. I was back up and running. I felt great. I was like, boo. And I was expecting to do that this year. I was wrecked. Like I tried to run 10 days later and I couldn't run. I tried to run 2 weeks later and my heart rate would spike up into like the
Hmm.
160s, the 170s.
Wow.
And I was also having really bad stomach. If like it happened during the race, but then I started like very bad stomach pain. Couldn't eat very well, and just everything felt. I was dizzy. I was nauseous. So it was a very rough recovery, and I don't think I think we always like look at other people and their recoveries and they're like, oh, they're already back and running and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, what
Yeah.
is wrong with me? Why? And
Yeah.
last year this was so easy. Why is my recovery so hard this year? And I don't know exactly why it was so much worse this year. But it was a good practice for me to like understand that every race recovery is going to be different and that you can't
Hmm.
like stick to an artificial timeline.
Right.
So it's helpful. I got a lot of blood work done, figured out like ended up developing an ulcer probably, I don't know, during the race, after the race, but that was explaining a lot of the
Jeez.
stomach stuff. So yeah, it's been rough, but it's very
Yeah.
humbling.
Yeah. I bet. Wow. And so, I mean, you said you're running a little bit now, it sounds
Yeah.
like. So I guess looking forward, I mean, and this kind of goes all the way back to the beginning of our conversation. It's like, do you see yourself now more as an ultra runner, or you talked about trying to hit that 100 miles in a 24-hour obstacle race? Like,
Yeah.
do you still see yourself being competitive in both of those worlds? Do you see one more than the other kind of calling your name in the future?
Yeah, it's tough because my heart is always going to be in obstacle racing, and I'm always going to go back there. They have hopefully this year if it kicks off like an ultra series of obstacle races, which like I still like to do, but I think I just still have that itch to scratch in the ultra world. I like really think that I should run a regular 100 miler instead of one where I have to stop every hour. So that's looking up ahead this year. Like that's kind of like where I want to go. My speed is not, I don't have, not that I ever had a lot of speed, but I just don't have as much as I used to. So I'm like, okay, longer. We'll just go longer. So
Yeah.
there's so much to explore and there's so much varied stuff in the ultra world. So I think like I'll continue to dabble in both, but I think I have more goals still in the ultra running world. Yeah.
Cool. And then I guess shorter term, is there anything that you have lined up now? Obviously, races are kind of hit or miss in terms of things in the spring. But what are you kind of looking forward to in 2021?
The only thing that I have that I really want to do is I want to get a Hard Rock qualifier, so I can
Okay.
eventually get in the lottery for Hard Rock.
Nice.
It's just going to be if I can get into any of those 100 milers. that are the Hard Rock qualifiers, since everything is like rolled over from last year. So that's
Gotcha.
really the only thing. I don't have a concrete race that's up ahead, so we'll see.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
Um, Sweet. Well, we can wrap it up. I mean, I guess the last thing to mention, again,
yeah,
we are super psyched to welcome you to the Chaski family, the Chaski team. We are mostly a coaching group. Amelia is not going to be coaching per se, as she is a very busy lady with a day job and um, beyond running insane amounts and taking care of a puppy, for all of you guys who follow her. No, but she is going to be doing some kind of consultation calls. If you are interested, Amelia, you've been super open and transparent about your journey, both with injuries, with eating disorders, and kind of how you've dealt with both of those things. So do you want to, I guess, talk a little bit about kind of
yeah,
who might
yeah.
be the right person there?
Yeah, I mean, and we did, Tyler and I, we've just kind of kicked this around. I don't know exactly what it would look like, or even if there's like a market for this or people are interested. But I do know, the few things that I do know are having a lot of stress fractures and learning how to train if you are an injury prone runner, or are trying to come back from a lot of bone injuries, and then also clearly like how do you navigate if for people who are dealing with disordered eating or eating disorders, how do you navigate running, and like can that be part of your life, and how do you deal with the mental health aspects and combine that? I'm clearly not a mental health professional, but yeah, we've kicked, and we don't really know what this will look like, but kicking around the idea of just kind of like a mentoring or a consultation about how to go about thread that needle with eating disorders and running. Because it's something that, I firmly believe you can do. It's not right for everyone. But there's not a lot of resources out there about it. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you are one of the probably the best resources in terms of people who have dealt with this at not only a very high level, but in a very public way. So I think it's awesome. It's admirable. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. Definitely give us a follow. And if you're interested in connecting with Amelia, you can shoot us a DM at Chaski.endurance. Obviously DM Amelia as well, and we'll get y'all set up. So that's the only little ad portion of this talk. Really, we just wanted to catch up. But Amelia, it's been awesome. I know you've got a
yeah,
hard stop at half past hour here, so I just want to say thanks for your time.
yeah,
We're super psyched to have you and cheer you on and whatever you're doing in 2021.
awesome. I'm excited to be a part. So thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Okay, thanks guys. Have a great
All right,
Sunday night, everybody, and a good week.
bye.
Bye.